Antonio Pierce would be very against trading Maxx Crosby. We're going to start with the first question this week. It's from Dan Vachelek, and I'm sorry if I butchered your name there, Dan. That's at Diehard. Where does Maxx Crosby go now that Davante Adams has been traded? Does he stay in Las Vegas or is he on the move next? Dan, I do not think he's going to be traded. And I do not think if you had asked Antonio Pierce a month ago, he was planning on or wanted to trade Davante Adams. That situation was more engineered by the player. And I don't think that Antonio Pierce wants to take pieces off of his team right now that are going to give him a chance to win for the rest of the year. He, of course, is trying to establish a program there, and that can be hard to do when your team is moving key pieces off the roster. And if you want to look back at it, the three-man leadership council on that team that Mark Davis really listened to over the course of the last year when it came to the firing of Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler and the decision to make Antonio Pierce the full-time head coach was made up of Davante Adams, Josh Jacobs, and Maxx Crosby. Jacobs is gone, left as a free agent to the Packers, and Adams is now gone, traded to the Jets. That leaves Crosby as the one player left from that council. So I think Antonio Pierce would be very against trading Maxx Crosby. Tom Telesco, of course, his job as the general manager is to have a more long-ranging view of where the franchise is and where the franchise is going. But I think in this case, he's got to do right by his coach. Now, that's not going to stop teams from calling. Teams will call on Maxx Crosby. But I think it would take a king's ransom to get him out of Las Vegas. Question number 2, this is from Eric Horstman. That's at eHorstman23. Are the Vikings going to be buyers at the trade deadline specifically for an impact defensive player, defensive line, or cornerback? Eric, I think they could absolutely add a piece. I think adding a defensive lineman or a corner would make some sense based on where they are at both those positions. Obviously, corner, they're a little bit older. With Stephon Gilmore as their top player out there. They've gotten a lot younger on the defensive edge with Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, and Dallas Turner as the guys. But yes, they could add another body on the interior. I just don't expect them to sell out. This is actually their year of transition and the year that they wanted to get younger and the year they wanted to reset. And they've done a remarkable job. I mean, to be 5-0, given that this offseason, they let go of maybe the two biggest pieces of the foundation of the last decade, all due respect to Justin Jefferson, but to let go of Kirk Cousins and Danielle Hunter and come out of it younger and potentially long-term better in having a quarterback, both Sam Darnold and J.J. McCarthy. McCarthy's hurt now, but he is a big part of the team's future. And then at the edge position that Danielle Hunter vacated to bring in Grenard, Van Ginkel, and Turner, they've done a fantastic job. So they're set up for the future now. They're set up to be really good over the next few years. And so I don't see them selling out at the trade deadline to go and fix a hole. But if there's opportunity available for maybe a mid-level move, I could see that happening. Finally, takeaway for question number 3. This is from Ken McManus. That's at Coco Ken 53. The Colts are 3-3 and the number 7 seed in the AFC. Which is more important, developing Anthony Richardson at the potential cost of a losing record, or continuing the fight for the playoffs with Joe Flacco at the cost of developing Richardson? I think the answer here is you develop Richardson and you give Richardson the reps. And playing Anthony Richardson now isn't about just 2024. It's about the next 10 to 15 years for that franchise. And while I think there is benefit to having Joe Flacco in there, I think there's also a defined ceiling. He's a very good quarterback. He's still a very good quarterback, even 18 years or 17 years into his NFL career. He can still move pretty good for an older guy. He's still got the howitzer of an arm, and did a great job in Cleveland last year, did a good job in Indianapolis over the last couple of weeks. But I think you owe it to yourself to continue the development plan with Anthony Richardson. I think Joe Flacco can be a great resource for him. You want this young group of players that you've got there. Bernard Raymond at left tackle, and Alec Pierce and Josh Downs and Michael Pittman at receiver, and Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. You look at that group of players, you want them growing up together, and you do that by playing Anthony Richardson. You already made the decision to go with him from the beginning in 2023 before he got hurt. The right decision is to stick with him now. if things look awful, a month from now, maybe you revisit it. But I think for right now, the right thing to do is put Anthony Richardson back in the lineup and see what you've got with Richardson.